Hey, I like that music. Dippy, 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 do. Trumpy, Trumpy gonna win. We're gonna have that in the background so I can do my little rippity rap now that I got some energy. How you guys doing? Good Wednesday, July 31st. We are literally at the end of July. This freaking year has not only gone by extremely fast, but the amount of things that have happened on this planet in the last 3 months is really staggering. It's almost overwhelming. How you guys doing?
Man, I'm good. I'm good. Been a little crazy week for me. Some some personal family issues that I had to take care of early in the week. Got my schedule completely thrown off. So just working on that and trying, make sure everybody's taken care of. But other than that, I mean, the markets, you can't.
Wait, before you do, Chris, before you do that, hey, I want the crowd, however many people are in here, just take 1 second to send some really cool energy to Chris's mom. She's 75, 76, struggling a little bit. So she could use some positive energy. That we can all do together. And I'm certain that if, 800 people all put some energy into one idea, it will, like I am certain we are manifesting Bitcoin into the U.S. reserve. And like, if we can do that as a large group of people, we can help Chris, we can help a lot of people. So that's what I'm doing this show for, to help educate people and bring everyone together, whether they're short-term traders, long-term traders, buying NVIDIA, wanting freedom. That's what Chris and I are here for. We were literally just talking about when people get old in families, if you don't have insurance or money or a way to he just wasted 3 days of his life that he could be doing business. Not wasted, but it does interfere when your family's sick. So you guys send them some positive energy. We're doing this show so each and every one of us is free. That's what I'm doing it for. I think money, it helps you get free. Yep. Without it, you're most certainly in a trap. So I'm not here to argue over it, but you're most certainly in a trap if you don't have fuel to go somewhere. So Chris, welcome. Sam, welcome. What the heck is going on in the markets, man?
Man, nothing I haven't been continuing to say for quite a while now that everybody wants to argue with, Again, the biggest thing to understand is whether you're trading or you're investing, or even if you're just looking from the sidelines, emotions are tough when you look at the market. Most people attempt to understand markets from lagging indicators, economic reports, speeches, things like that. But, as I continue to talk about, the general trends are already in there, and they're based on what we as a whole, what we call our social mood, how we feel. Because the quickest and easiest way we can understand how people feel in general, in spite of maybe the echo chambers that you get in social media a lot, is by where does their money go? Is it going into the markets? If it's going into the markets, it only goes in the markets because people aren't as concerned that things are going to hell in a handbasket. And again, that seems completely contrary to what we tend to see online, right? You have Chicken Littles running around screaming, with their head cut off, that, it's the end of the world. Big depression, has happened. They've been saying that for a couple of years now. Bitcoin top is in. They've been saying that for 4 months, 5 months now. But, the charts don't show that unless you're looking at it through the lens of the top is in. Then, it's like anything else in life. You can convince yourself that it is. There's that great quote that said, basically, whatever you're looking for, you'll find, right? So if you think, the top's in and all this bad stuff's happening, and you look at the chart, you'll find some way to make it say that. But, again, so we look in there, we're going to have, the indexes, the stock indexes look ready, primed to pop out higher now. NVIDIA, we'll talk about that here in a bit. I believe it's just a pullback. I think it's got further still to go here, higher to go, which is going to kill all the people that are all about how it's been a $1 trillion or whatever that pullback has been here. And so we got that. The dollar continues to weaken. So we've got that. Ethereum, we'll look at that. Ethereum, for as big as the outflows have been, which I think has been something like $2 billion or something from Grayscale alone, it's dropped not even 10%. So, it's not really been hit a whole lot by those outflows. We've got speaking of Grayscale, we've got their Bitcoin mini ETF product that launched today, 0.15% fees. Absolutely crazy. Not quite as crazy as the whatever the fees are on the Ethereum Trust, the 2% or 2.5% or whatever the heck it was. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, and things, if you actually look at what's going on there, rather than trying to make sense of it with the news data that's coming out there and what you think that means, the other stuff actually continues to look promising and continues to look like we've got, higher for longer across the market. So, that's the people that are very bearish right now. That's going to poke them the wrong way. But it is what it is. I'm not here to make anybody upset or happy or otherwise. I'm just here to say, this is what the charts say, right?
Yeah. What did the rest of the market do, Chris? Because I was gone. Sam and I were gone since seems like
last
1,000 years
ago.
Yeah. And I know NVIDIA had a big, now NVIDIA's up today, right? 15% or something. Everybody was like, the sky is falling. The overall market, the AI market, the FANGs, I guess they call them the MAG 7 now. We change these acronyms every decade.
Yeah.
Are you seeing more volatility? I mean, I noticed even the volatility index, which I have thought has been forever low. Won't even trade it anymore. I can't even. It's more, to me, the VIX seems like it's like the gold market. It's highly managed because it never makes any sense to me, man. 10, and there's, missiles flying all over the place.
Right. And you're right. That's something I've talked about many times over the last year, is just how low the VIX has continued to remain. We did finally get some volatility here. With things like NVIDIA pulling back. And I know we had Microsoft took a big pullback yesterday, a big drop yesterday prior to earnings release. So we've had some of our bigger companies kind of doing that thing. But, at the end of the day, like you said, VIX has basically been just this little kitten thing for, for over the last year now. And so we finally get some volatility, but again, I think it's just a pullback right now. My charts and everything still have things, generally speaking, continuing higher. So like you said, so far today, I think we've had almost a 12.5% rally in NVIDIA. And so, or for the week here, for the week here, which may actually be just for today. Let me see here. Yeah. Yesterday into today. Which has been pretty great, as far as that goes, because it was just this week, the beginning of this week, where everybody was talking about the big pull down, how much money how much market cap it's lost and whatnot. And it was a big number, but it's been a much, much bigger number that it's rallied up.
It only went up $1.5 trillion in 6 months.
Yeah,
exactly. And hey, listen, I'm in a room with, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm in a room with two media guys in crypto. They've been here a long time. Some of the largest guys in the world, and two old time investors like me. All three of us. I'm the smallest Bitcoiner there. Okay, like these guys are monsters, and these two guys go on and go, hey, what's taking so long? It's been a whole 15 years. And he and I just look at both of these guys and go, what the fuck is wrong with you people? We just literally like, do you know how short of a period of time this is? Right? It is so short to become $1 trillion industry. It's actually staggering. And we're just looking at these two guys like they are. That is a wrong mindset. Okay. There's something wrong with this mindset. And I remember when I was 24, dude, I was like, I'm never going to be 39. 39 is forever. Who wants to be 39, right? And I didn't think about the compounding value of money. I just didn't understand time, actually. Time is the thing I have most misunderstood in my whole life. And I probably still butcher it. Right. But if you really think about what money is, it's basically how I value my personal time. Anyway, it was very interesting seeing three very wealthy guys just look at these two guys like, what the hell is wrong with y'all? Oh, I know that you share that view.
Yeah, I love when you bring that up all the time, because it's the thing, the one thing I used to say a lot was that, the thing that trading should do, if you're doing trading, is it should provide freedom of time and freedom through money, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the only thing we can't get back is time. So if we can find a way to bring in income, to bring in wealth that enables us to spend less time doing the menial stuff and more time actually living life, spending whatever, it's at the end of the day, no billionaire on their deathbed is laid there and said, man, I wish I had bought more of XYZ stock or, something like that, right? You're on your deathbed. You're thinking about all the things that you hopefully have done with the people that you love in your life. And that should be the goal. I mean, I think a lot of young people, like you were just talking about there, we don't, and when I was young, we don't understand this concept of time. When you're in your 20s, you're invincible. You're going to last forever. Death is so far off. It's probably never even going to come, right? But as we mature, as we get older, especially if you're involved in markets one way or another, you really start understanding the importance of time and of compounding. And then you start kicking yourself for not doing what you're doing in your 40s or 50s back when you were in your 20s, because you'd be so much further ahead. And so, I see that a lot with the Bitcoin people right now. You've got guys and gals that have been in here for quite a bit of time. Longer. I've just been in since January 2017, but they've been in since 2014, 2012, whatever. And a lot of them have very little to show for it. And now they're sitting here going, man, if only I had just bought and held back then, rather than try to do all these other silly things I was doing, I'd be so much further ahead right then. But that's life. That's what we live and we learn, and hopefully you learn that sooner than later. So when I'm looking at this, I'm like, hey, yeah, things are looking good still here. I continue to say, God, I love trading, guys. Listen, I love trading. I'm a trader. It's provided an amazing life for me. And for other people I know as well, so it can be done. But even with that, I still hold this bag of Bitcoin that I don't touch, and I think that's the only smart way you do it. Absolutely anything could happen. Anything can happen. You could, heaven forbid, you could pass away tomorrow. You could become incapacitated in some way where you can't continue trading. I mean, there's so much that can happen. And so right now, it seems to me that holding a bag of Bitcoin is a no-brainer, because that's going to continue, it continues to rise in value for us. And so that protects us against either stupid mistakes we make, because we're human beings and we're going to make stupid mistakes.
Well, hey, speaking of stupid mistakes, if we could maybe look at a little incident that happened during the Nashville event and subsequent to it. I don't know if Sam can help me pull up some of these reports, but I spent an hour in a room with what was called the round table. I can talk about this, right, Sam? It's not a big...
Yeah.
Anyway, there's 15, 20 people there from financial players like Howard Lutnick to miners, senators, exchanges. Assume every exchange was there that you could imagine. Anyway, some really core key principal players, a couple of very large Bitcoin holders, myself, and then there was David Bailey and some other politicians. I mean, serious politicians. Vivek. This is the piece I think the audience doesn't really appreciate. Trump comes in. We were all talking before Trump comes in. Wonderful people, by the way, dude. Just a room full of high-class intellect across multiple disciplines. And all we want to do is have expansion for the world. Really, I mean, everybody in there is like really positive. And they're producers, right? They're not takers. They're actually doing stuff. Who's the lady that Loomer? No. Who's the Loomis?
Oh,
Lummis. Yeah. See, this is how ignorant I am on politics. I can barely pronounce these people's names, and I'm hanging out with them now, which is concerning to Sam. Anyway, Trump comes out quite humbly, by the way. And one message I would share with anyone is that whatever you see on TV is very different in person. I can't explain it other than I hate looking at myself on TV. I think I look completely different than I thought I did in the way I behave, and it really irritates me how stupid I am. But Donald Trump, and I am really good at reading people, he does not come across anywhere close to the way he comes across on TV. I don't know what TV does to him. He looks angry on TV a little bit. I did not pick up any anger or fear at all, which is really unusual. I normally pick up one of those emotions from someone who talk about comfortable. He looks very, very comfortable in his own skin, which tells me he has no intention on changing. Now I do see him listening, which I was told that he didn't do. But he walked into a room and said, "Hey, what do you guys want from me?" We told him, "We don't want you to sell 210,000 Bitcoin. That's stupid. We want you to select put a group of digital players together. Self-custody is extremely important to sovereignty. This industry can deploy 2 to 3 million jobs, high-paying jobs without a college education required." We went through the whole list, okay? We're reminded, hey, we're only in another event, Pantera's CEO reminded me that we're less than 9% of crypto market. Yeah. That is staggering. I thought we were at 12. If we're sub 10, wow, that is a Kamala Harris grade for the United States. Seriously, okay? That is not cool. We should be at least 20% of the digital world. And I don't think most governments even understand we are not even close to owning that market. They probably think we're 80% of the market. We are less than 9% of the market. Well, what did he say when he came out? Well, before he came out, he said one thing: "You guys get everyone to vote for me and I will deliver." Period. He wasn't in doubt. Like, I love doing business with those kind of guys. We got a deal. We're done. Let's roll. If he fails, we can embarrass him in front of millions and millions of people, pull all these recordings back, shove it in his face. He has no intention on doing that. Okay. Now, is he talking perfectly? The Bitcoin community is so frustrating to me because he comes out and says, "Never sell your Bitcoin." By the way, no one in that room told him that those words were not mentioned. But someone from Bitcoin told him that one day, and he picked it up, man. Okay, I think it's the dumbest comment you could ever make. But he heard it here. He didn't hear it from reading a book or listening to Donald Trump Jr. Okay, I just don't believe that. So what did he come out and say? My God, man, he couldn't have been more bullish or done more for what we asked him to do. Oh, we asked him to fire Gensler. Now, notice when the crowd went nuts, okay? The crowd went nuts when they should have gone nuts earlier. If anyone understands Trump, he wants to be applauded. He wants you to tell him what's going to get him money and votes, okay? Because he understands that, quite frankly, he wasn't overwhelmed that we only gave him $25 million. He's expecting us to give him 100 because he understands the freaking problem he's got. He's got 4 months to survive this thing. Bullets, bombs, terror attacks, financial attacks, legal attacks. Like, this is not done. And I mean, that is his concern. So if you're not like doing all the heavy lifting, you're going to have to write some checks, guys. I mean, all the Kennedy people, I don't know how much money you guys gave Kennedy. I don't hear anybody advertising that they gave $25 million to Robert Kennedy. Like that, we should have consolidated all this money. Anyway, I thought the guy was an ass kicker, bro. I just thought he did an unbelievable job. My point is, a week ago, you and I were on a show after Germany spewed 44,000 Bitcoin all over the market. and everyone was worried they were going to dump 210,000 coins. He said he would not. Kennedy said he would not. Now Kamala has gone crazy, right? The Bitcoin market explodes to $70, $70,000. Kamala Harris and the Democrats then start approaching Anthony Scaramucci. It probably actually happened the other way, right? Anthony and the team probably called up the Dems saying, "What are y'all doing? You have to have a response." And their response was, "We're moving 2 wallets of all those coins," and the Bitcoin price went down. That's the only reason Bitcoin went down from 70, dude. I know you don't like the narratives, but it happened too quickly. And if you don't get bullish about Howard Lutnick and Cantor Fitzgerald having a $2 billion lending protocol program that they waited to announce for the Trump Bitcoin conference, and then Trump saying he's not going to dump 210,000, which is effectively saying he will take Bitcoin and stick it on the reserve at some point. Once we have some time for him to understand Bitcoin, he can understand Bitcoin. Okay. Once he understands, he is never coming off that standard. Never. And he just alerted the entire planet. Clearly, Democrats weren't listening. Switzerland, who just announced they're looking at this now. Oh, Putin. Putin announced 12 hours after our show that he's going to make it easy for people to move crypto around. Poof, we're here. This price should be at 80 grand, dude. Anthony Scaramucci's 40% higher than I am at the end of the year. Dan Morehead's 40% higher than I am at the end of the year. Everybody's like, price is going to move. You and I are Mr. Conservative, I think. But dude, there's so much tailwinds here. Like there isn't anything better. I mean, he's even talking about tax reduction.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to have talked so long, but it's for the audience and some. And then can you explain to me why this thing hasn't gone right through 73, bro?
Yeah, it's just finishing up reaccumulation. I mean, again, we want things to happen right when news events happen, right when other things happen, which is what tends to get people who are trading rather than investing, into a lot more trouble. Because they want those, they want that instant gratification. Now, part of that, as human beings, we've always kind of want the more instant gratification. But again, Gary, you've been around even a bit longer than I have. And you've probably seen this as well, how the change, especially when we got the internet, the globalization, especially when we got social media, the time of which the people actually focus continues to drop, right? It continues to drop and it gets shorter and shorter. And now we got TikTok videos. And so the people's attention spans are even shorter. And that just kind of continues to expand on the way in which, our expectations go for whatever it happens to be. So we're talking about markets right now, and we're hearing all this great stuff about Bitcoin, yet it hasn't taken off just yet. And so what usually happens is, people get bored. They do stupid things. They sell. They start questioning whether, the top is in now or not. They start getting concerned. And then what happens is when they've given up, it's at that point the price usually pops out. And then they're left with one or two things. One is they're either stressed about it. So they're concerned about, oh my God, I shouldn't get in because it's probably just a trap and I'll lose money. And then they get more and more stressed as it continues to rally. And usually they finally get in right around the top. It's about that time that they go, I can't stand anymore. I got to get in. And then it drops. I'm like, God, see what happens. But that's the way it normally plays out for most retail traders, most retail investors when they're looking for that, that perfect entry. The good thing about investing is you don't have to have such a perfect entry because you have time, right? You have time on your hands. You're not trying to trade a 5-minute time frame. The smaller your time frame, the more you have to focus on that entry. But the longer your time frame, the more room you have. So you can get in and like Gary did. Gary has been talking here. A great example is Gary's been talking here about the entries he's made here during this consolidation over the last 4.5, 5 months, whatever it's been here. Gary's been very vocal about it. He's very upfront about it. He's like, listen, I bought here, I had down here, we didn't hit that, so now I got it up here. Gary, it's within this, this $15,000, $20,000 range. He's been buying up toward the top of it, down toward the bottom of it, because the time frame for Gary is much longer. It's an investment. His entry within that $15,000 range here means nothing in the grand scheme of things when this thing hits 100,000, 200,000, whatever, as it continues to go up. If you are trying to play the short-term trade, though, this is havoc. This creates havoc on you because most people are buying and selling in the middle of the range. If you're insistent on buying and selling ranges, you have to buy the range support. You have to sell the range resistance. You got to stop getting involved in the middle of the range because you're going to lose most of your money there. And so the goal should always be, just like with everything else in life, make it as simple as possible for yourself. Make it as easy as possible. We tend to try and make things very complicated, but life is about making things easier, and that includes your trading, your investing. Now, here's the thing. This is the daily chart here. This is the hash ribbons indicator.
Just for the audience, let me ask you a question on this chart. With these two channels going down, if I look at that channel, right, that channel looks negative to me. It looks like it's, hey, Bitcoin's going down over a period of time. Can you explain to the audience what this structure is creating?
Sure, yeah, and you're correct. Okay, so off the if we look at market structure off this all-time high here, this is bearish market structure. Okay, we have a high, we have a low, we have a lower high, we have a lower low. Okay, so we are in bearish market structure off here. Now, here's the thing. If we break out above this last lower high here, which there's only one, sometimes there's multiples, right? But there's just this one right here. On this chart, it's right around 71,974. If we can just go 1 penny above, it's 974 and 4 cents. So if we go 974 and 5 cents, that breaks this bearish market structure. We are no longer then in a bearish market structure. Now, the way that I like looking at this is just a reaccumulation range here. And so what you look for is you generally look for a spring, which is this little dip below and close back up above that range support. And what you're looking for is just this volume drop off, generally speaking. Again, very real generalities. There's a lot more to it. But, if you've got volume dropping off as your range is developing, what that's telling you is there's less and less interest in continuing to sell that down, right? And so for me, I look for this right here, which we got. And then we've had this incredible rally, which has almost taken out that last lower high. So if I'm looking at this, it's to me, it's a very bullish structure because I understand what I'm looking at in terms of that volume and that price action and, and the market structure that I explained. There's, different ways you can look at it. But because of that, I'm not concerned, which is why I haven't been concerned all this time when everybody else was screaming the top was in, the top was in. Now I've had to adjust the range a bit here because we did have this little bit lower drop here, but that's all right. It doesn't change what I was looking at in terms of volume and price action, because at the end of the day, if we're really expecting this to be distribution here, we should be continuing to see a high activity within the range because you have retail continuing to buy, you have the professionals, the larger ones, continuing to sell, okay? But we don't have that. Again, we have volume dropping off as we go through here, and then it picks up right here where it prints this long demand wick on that on support there and, dips below. And so, that shows you that there's demand there, right? There was no real forceful push of supply here. There was no the market jumping in and continuing to push in, and we see it, we see volume ramping up like this coming down here. It was a lot of overlap. We just had this big move right here, which it needed to break that swing low, but that's all it did. It broke it and then it was back up, right? So, these are the intricacies that, once you actually understand them, it helps you understand partly how and why markets are moving the way they do and how to kind of read it as it's happening. Now, some people are going to say that this is a flag, right? Because it's a general structure. It's this descending kind of.
They've already done it. They're commenting, it's a bear flag. And fib sign.
It would actually be a bull flag if it was one. It would be a bull flag. But if we look at the actual rules of classical charting, flags generally last just a few weeks, not multiple months. So At this point, it's much too long time in duration to be considered a flag. It's just a descending channel right there. Slightly lower highs, slightly lower lows on that. But again,
by
getting
the way,
ready.
Chris, what time chart are you on?
This right here is the daily.
Now, if the daily, because some people thought that was a 1 minute chart. I didn't think you looked at those super short term, short duration. If you change that to weekly, does that slope change much?
No. I mean, basically, it's that right there. And what we've seen the last 2 weeks.
Well, it actually gets a little bit steeper.
Well, it seems like it because we've got the time frame, compressed.
Oh,
but
okay.
It doesn't actually change it, right? It visually it looks like it. But I mean, for me, what's important is we've got these 2 big weeks here that erased 1, 2, 3, almost 4 previous weeks of downside in just 2 weeks there. And that's big, that's big coming off there. But here's the one thing I was talking to Sam about that I want to talk about real quick. For those that maybe are new or don't understand, there is an indicator called the hash ribbons. And so if you're up here in TradingView, you can look up hash ribbons and it'll be, well, maybe it'll show up. Well, okay. Try one more time here. TradingView is having a little bit of an issue here. Let me see if I can get it pushed up here because I just want people to see if they can pull this up themselves. All right. Well, it's not going to show up in the moment. Anyway, it's called hash ribbon. So you can go up there, you can type it in. If you look in here, you see it's Caprioli Investments Limited. That's going to be the author of it. And what it does is it looks at minor capitulation. And what it does is it says, okay, we've got minor capitulation starting around here. And you can see it goes from the gray to the green to the blue. The blue is the buy signal. That basically says, okay, miners are done capitulating. So technically speaking, price is going to rally higher. And, and if you go back through in time, you can look through there. Again, you had the buy signal right here, just dipped a little bit, then big breakout. Again, right here, buy signal took off, right? So this is something we've used for years. If you've been in Bitcoin to look at, and it just flashed a buy signal back here on the 24th, back over here, dip down. Here we go, pushing up again. So if you need yet another potential reason, to believe that the top is not in yet and we're probably heading out higher, you can look at the hash ribbons there. And that indicator says that we should be expecting price ultimately to break out higher and continue on. So I like that. And, I like that it did flash that buy signal. It just kind of adds more support to everything we're doing here. You'll notice the buy signal does not come at the bottom. Again, it talks, it looks at that recovery off the capitulation event to give you that signal to potentially buy. So that looks good there as far as Bitcoin goes.
Can you talk about that mini BlackRock Bitcoin ETF? Like, why is that significant? Why do they need to launch another one? What's the purpose?
Yeah, so for them, basically they're saying, hey, listen, it's our way to compete. I'm not really sure, because again they didn't drop their fees. They kept the high fees on the original conversion to an ETF. But this one brings in 10% of that original ETF, I believe it is, into it, which is why, like I said, it launches today, and it's got about a 1.7 billion, I believe, under management with it as it launches today. But that fee, it's there to compete with BlackRock and everybody else with the 0.15. So, who knows why people do the things they do, but it is there. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see how, what are the kind of flows with this now, because we know how they've been with their original Bitcoin ETF, kind of coming out there and being that large fee, not competing with everything. So
Who launched this one?
It's Grayscale.
The Grayscale.
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. They still have their big main ETF one, but this is, like I said, I think it starts with 10% of what they had under management with the big one, with this mini ETF here. And again, the fee is great. The fee is 0.15. So that's, right up there with everybody in doing that. But it does launch today. So I think it's interesting to watch as we go here. Are people going to put money back into Grayscale now? You know, it was such a long thing because, you know, before you put it in there, and it was you weren't getting your Bitcoin back out, right? When they were, you know, before the ETF. And so a lot of the exodus has been, God, we can finally leave this madness. You know, the question is, do they go, okay, well, now we can get back in because we can get out when we want. You know, do we do it for the lower fee? That'll be interesting to see.
Chris, were you able to digest Mr. Michael Saylor's new model? That I thought, you know, just for the audience, I think that if you step back from this presentation he did and understand there was a lot of things going on at the Bitcoin conference. I saw a presentation. He's always been very corporate, kind of, what's the word for it? Centric or focused. The presentation he did, though, showing $13-14 million Bitcoin as a kind of a moderate 20-year forecast.
Yeah,
I think that pitch was done specifically to some of the largest corporations and accountants and CFOs in the world. I do not think that pitch was so elevated to sovereigns and treasury. It was not speaking to retail. I think he's figured out, hey, look, the middle tier guys like me, we're going to get handled. But he is now turning his attention on treasury. I suspect he knew that Trump was going to push, maybe not. I suspect he did meet with him. Trump was pretty bullish. But you can't believe that if you believe Saylor's presentation was focused on very, very senior corporate people running billions, if not trillions, you got to believe some of these other sovereigns are going to wake up and say, hey, I do not have the time to beat America as much time as I thought. Because once America puts this on their balance sheet, dude, it's game over, right? This becomes massive game theory.
Yeah.
We never expected that there'd be any major sovereign doing this in this year, much less next. Who would have thought it would have been the USA? Dude? You go from El Salvador to the USA, that's pretty significant in my opinion.
And now you already have others hinting at it, right? Like I think you guys said with Putin, now he's saying, hey, mining's acceptable. We want to make crypto transfers acceptable. And we're not even doing anything yet. This is just from a presidential candidate.
Hey, that all happened from raising $25 million, guys, quite frankly. Seriously, that is massive leverage, in my opinion. You have the Democrats literally spinning up like, hey, how do we respond to this? And you got Robert Kennedy. So Trump's a really tremendous catalyst. I think that's the way I look at him. He catalyzes everything he puts his attention on. But what do you think, Chris? I mean, have you been able to drill down in that model and see and look at it from an analytical trader's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And I even like that he has the bear case is 3 million. If we're sitting here today, I mean, that's what, 2045. So that's about 20 years from now, God willing, I'll still be alive at that point. I'd love to see it. And that would be significant. I think, it really comes down to the biggest thing being, so we have El Salvador, who's the first one really came out and said, listen, we're going to put, Bitcoin here. We're going to be Bitcoin centric, all that. But at the end of the day, they're a very, very small country. It doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things. It's more of an ideological approach, right? But if you get somebody, some major country, the U.S., Russia, the U.K., something bigger like Japan, whatever, then all of a sudden you have a lot more. Then it becomes real. Then the game theory that you're talking about really kicks in. And this is not to downplay El Salvador at all. I think it's a great thing, and it was needed. I've always said, I don't really hate Bitcoin maxis. Everything that you want to make bigger, that you want to grow, you need your maximalists pushing it. And so, you know, we kind of look at El Salvador that same way. And because of that, and then getting up here, and then, you know, even if what Trump is saying is just nothing he ends up doing, even if, let's just say, he wins the presidency and he doesn't, you know, for whatever reason, doesn't do this strategic reserve of Bitcoin. The fact that he's talking about it, and, you know, it makes it much more real in terms of the situations in which it'll make where it'll make a difference, right? So again, you know, I think the U.S. would need to do it before somebody else. I think whoever does it first, big country wise, you know, major country, is going to definitely be well ahead of everybody else. So I would hate to see somebody, you know, else coming in and then the U.S. kind of following up behind them. But you know, the fact that they're talking about it, I think that's what gives some real kind of legs to what Saylor's talking about. But a lot of that also has to do with the fact that the U.S. remains the world reserve currency. And, you know, there's a lot of printing going on. Now, how does that affect, you know, the value of the dollar going forward? Because Bitcoin, a lot of what it gains in terms of its value is due to, you know, global flows of capital, right? Money printing globally, not just in the U.S., but globally, right? We've talked about it before. Global liquidity is what drives overall asset prices, what pushes them up overall. If you have globally, you know, extra money coming out, people need somewhere to put it. The U.S. stock market is believed to be the safest place to put your money, you know, worldwide, which is why we have, I don't know if, you know, a lot of people realize this, but we have so much foreign investment in our stock market. And so, you know, there's a lot of intricacies here. There's a lot of, on social media, there's, you know, a very general kind of discussion about things. But at the end of the day, there's a lot more moving parts. It's a lot more intricate than what people understand. But at least they're talking about it. That's probably the greatest thing I can say about Bitcoin, is that it's got people actually truly interested in the financial system, in money, right? Money for more than simply being something that you buy things with. Understanding, you know, deflation and inflation, and understanding, you know, the value of the fiat currency that you're using, you know, and what's driving that. But I think a lot of people do miss a lot when it comes to the US dollar because of our specific position in the world. 88% of international transactions still use the US dollar. We are around 58, 60% of global FX reserves, currency reserves. The second one is the euro at 20%, guys.
Wow.
After that, everybody's 10, and most of them are around 5 or less. When you look at the top few global reserve currencies. So, you know, everybody's like, oh, BRICS, and everybody's getting involved in BRICS, and BRICS is going to take down the US. And the reality of it is, even if they create an alternative monetary system that people decide they want to use, countries decide they want to use, companies decide they want to use, that's nothing that's going to happen overnight. The US dollar is so firmly entrenched as the world reserve currency, it's going to take time. It's a very complex structure that has to be built up to take that out. So not that I believe the US dollar is necessarily going to end forever. No fiat currency has lasted forever. But it's, you know, this idea that hyperinflation is around the corner. Jack Dorsey said it, that infamous tweet back in 2020, where he said, hyperinflation is coming now. It's here, you know, and we're nowhere near that at the moment. There's a lot of differences between the U.S. today and Weimar Germany in 1920. You know, that seems to be one that everybody's like, oh, look how quick, you know, we had hyperinflation there. The situation is so significantly different between the U.S. today and what Weimar was back then. So the good thing about all this, I guess what I want to get to is the good thing about all this is we don't have to have these things happening in order for Bitcoin to do well. Bitcoin doesn't even, we don't need the fiat systems to crash in order for Bitcoin to do well. Bitcoin can become part of that fiat system, the underlying, right? The check in the balance of what's going on that makes those other fiat systems continue to go on. And fiat systems suck. They do. We're debt-based economies. We have to have inflation because you have to pay today's debt with, you know, cheaper dollars in the future. But having Bitcoin integrated into the system, I think is really the significant everywhere it comes, because then the U.S. remains, you know, the global reserve currency most likely. they just have a lot more support for it at that point with Bitcoin entrenched in that global financial system. So yeah, I think I love the conversation that's happening, in social media. But I just, hopefully people understand that most of what's spoken out there are very, very kind of top level, very just kind of skimming the surface of what's coming on there. So that's why I love talking, again, the Beards of Bitcoin show we do every week with Andrew and Tillman. Great minds, get us really kind of thinking about how does Bitcoin play into the future of the financial systems? How does it look? How do we get these things? Where can we get from there? And then Joe, I always mess up his last name, Calasari.
Calasari.
Yeah, man, love him. If you're not following him, you definitely should be, because he's one of the more level-headed minds out there, right? When we're looking at information that people normally look at, macroeconomists or people that trade on fundamentals, he looks at it much more level-headed than what they do, and can give you a better understanding when you're looking at it. So, a few of my favorite people to follow and talk to as we kind of go through all this. And I think people should talk with them. They should ask them questions because they're going to get some great answers. And you may not like it at first because it's different than what you're thinking. But, again, doing this, being involved in markets, for 30 years here now, I'm going to tell you, that's the better stuff to be paying attention to than all the doom and gloom, it's the end of the world kind of things. Now, we can't say, there are no guarantees. We can't say for sure that things don't end tomorrow, right? There's always that thing. But until, the charts and whatever are saying, hey, listen, we got to really be serious about that. You hedge your risk and you continue onward. Otherwise, you're stuck on the sidelines for the last freaking 3 years while everybody was screaming, oh my God, it was the top, the Dow at 28 or whatever. And now we're up at 42, and you're missing all this run. Or the S&P, getting up there near 5,600 already. So, yeah.
What do you think about stable coins, by the way? Because what's interesting is Trump in his speech has essentially said that, hey, I don't mind Bitcoin and all this stuff is actually going to help the US dollar, right? And I think stable coins are actually going to, people are always talking about, like when you were talking about BRICS, I always think, oh, the US dollar is coming to an end. I'm like, well, crypto might actually be helping the US dollar. And I think Nick Carter's the one who did some research on that and published a study how it's increasing demand for US treasuries. And so the market is saying we actually want more dollars, which I just find fascinating.
Yeah. And it seems to go against what we generally see when we first flip on our social media, right? Again, it's the end of the world and the dollar's going to hell in a handbasket. But, I don't think generally speaking it is, again, the US dollar is the dirtiest shirt in the closet, basically. Or the cleanest shirt of the dirty shirt.
Cleanest shirt in the closet.
Yeah. So, it is what it is. People have been romanticizing the death of the dollar, at least since the 70s, since we got off the gold standard. From the 1950s to the 1970s, we really had two competing reserve currencies. It was the US dollar and it was gold. 1970s, gold the dollar taken off, that the dollar becomes the thing. There's always the euro dollar market, which is this huge market that most people don't understand and don't really know about. But basically, it's U.S. dollars held offshore. And so when banks have U.S. dollars offshore, they can, again, do fractional reserve banking on those dollars, which increases the amount of that. So there's a lot of demand for dollars, contrary to what people believe. Now, does that mean that the dollar is going, like the DXY, which is the index we look at, the dollar, weighted against, the other majors? Do we expect that to go? I don't expect that to go up right now. I think it's in a downtrend. Again, when we were about 88.
What does it mean in a downtrend mean? Does it mean there's less demand? What does that mean?
It just means that the dollar in so the DXY is a weighted index, and so it weights the dollar against the Euro USD, the USD yen, the Great British Pound USD. And so you've got these majors that are out there, and it just weights the dollar in relation to those other pairs. And so what we talk about when we talk about the DXY rolling down is we're talking about those other pairs gaining ground on it, becoming more valuable against the dollar overall. But that doesn't.
So inflation, like does it measure inflation of the U.S. dollar in a sense, or the deflation, I guess, of other currencies? It's just
yeah, exactly. It's a comparison of how is the dollar doing versus those other currencies, rather than how is the dollar doing against itself or against overall inflation or something like that. It's that weighted average of. So if you look at it, almost between 50 and 60% of the value of the DXY is the Euro USD. And so 13% or so is the USD yen. So, it's a significant drop off there. And then you're getting down there, to 5% and whatnot. And so, some currency pairs hold more value in that DXY pricing than others. And so all that means, again, is as the DXY comes down, it just means that the dollar in relation to the other currencies in general in that weighted index is pulling back. But it doesn't mean that the dollar, is all of a sudden below anybody or anything like that. As we talked about at the beginning, earlier, 88% of international transactions are use the USD. And that's currently that's like within this last year. And then of course, as far as currency reserves go, FX currency reserves, USD is 60%. The second closest is the Euro USD, or I'm sorry, the Euro at around 20%. And then after that, they're all way down there. So if you're worried about China, its currency coming up there, it's actually fallen off the last year or two now. It's pulled back. In the grand scheme of things, it's like 4% or something as it is. So there's a lot of work to do when people talk about hyperinflation's tomorrow and, and then the USD is not going to be the reserve currency. There's a lot of things that have to happen, and it won't happen suddenly. It's just the system's too complex, too thrown together to do that. So whenever you go, oh my God, all this debt printing here in the US in relation to GDP, stuff like that, what people fail to do is go and look at, the same thing in Japan, the same thing in Europe, the same thing in the UK, the same thing in, and so they're just going, oh my God, these big numbers here in the US, but you've got the same thing happening over in the other countries as well. So yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the very top soil level kind of look at things.
But headlines.
Yeah, exactly. They're great talking points. They're great to get, interaction online, stuff like that. But they leave a lot out that, that's really important in understanding the whole thing.
Well, Sam, in your title, you got rate cuts in the future. You want to discuss those?
Yeah, today's the FOMC meeting, Chris. What's your prediction?
So, we've been looking at it likely being a no change this time around, and then probably a 25 basis point cut there the next time in September. And so that's what I'm looking at right now. We're going to have that here in about an hour, I guess.
And what's your logic behind that? Just briefly, why you think we'll cut today and then a cut in September?
Yeah. So, we've been flat for a while now. Inflation ran up to 9.3 or 9.6%. It's now down to 3%. People want to go, okay, well, why aren't my prices dropping? Well, because it's still inflation, right? It's still going up. It's going up at 3% though, versus 9+% that it was 2 years ago. So when we're looking at that, we've had this great kind of decrease in inflation. Everybody talks about the CPI, but about 10 or 12 years ago, the Fed actually changed to the PCE, which comes at the end of the month as their preferred inflation gauge. And that's continued to come down as well. We just had the recent one here last week, I guess it was. Year over year, we're down. And so, we've had inflation dropping, jobs, whether you want to believe it or not, you got to kind of dig into the numbers and how the U.S. Presents them, where are the jobs coming from? Are they, part-time? Are they...
Yeah, where are they coming from?
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of them have actually been moving from the higher paying, more corporate jobs into the more, like servers and stuff like that.
Well, you won't hear that. You'll just hear job growth and job creation. Right.
And it really depends where is it coming from. But at the end of the day, even at 4% where we're at right now, we are historically low. I've never... When we hit that 3.5% or whatnot a while back, I thought we'd have a pretty decent move back up because that's usually what happens. But we have stayed historically low for an unprecedented amount of time. And so when you look at that, and when the Fed's looking at that, and then the Fed's looking at, at inflation coming down, there's no real reason to raise rates. As a matter of fact, it starts giving them, some support for the idea that they're going to lower them. Now, the other thing we have coming up is obviously the election. And usually when you're coming into the election, even though the Fed's supposed to be independent, we usually see some sort of rate drop coming into it. But, again, 25 basis points is negligible. It's not really anything that's going to do anything. But, it's a discussion point. It's right. Oh, look, they cut rates. So, when we kind of look at all that together, I think that's where we're at as we come into it. Now, ADP just released their jobs numbers. And those came in soft. I think ADP numbers, I think they were looking at 150,000 and they came in at 122,000. Now the ADP rarely correlates with the Friday numbers, the NFP that we get out. So we'll see how that turns out. But, again, coming in, the most important things that you should be looking at with those numbers that come in are not necessarily the headline numbers they talk about. Look at wage growth. Look at your week over week, hours. Are people working more hours? And then look at, what they're getting paid. Are they getting paid more? Those are going to give you a better understanding of what may be going on, because you can have job growth, again, on the lower paying, $7 an hour, $10 an hour side of it. So you've got higher growth, but overall, the average that people are getting paid is coming down, right? And that's not, you want that number to go up. Generally speaking, you can also have a decrease in hours. So even if people are maybe making more on average, if their hours are dropping enough, on average, well, it kind of mitigates that, right? All of a sudden, you're still making about the same. So you're still looking at how much money is out there to be spent on the, in the economy.
Nobody's working enough, in my opinion. I offered that on the panel with two really rich guys on the panel. They said, what would you do? I said, shit, I'd go do another 20 hours of work. And you could almost see these guys that are like, hey, that's, go mow a yard. And they were like, mow a yard? Yeah, go mow a yard. I don't think anybody's working. Very few people work more than 35 hours a week now. Most certainly. Yeah. And that's probably 32 or less in Europe. Yeah. I think we're in for a rude awakening, dude. I think people are going to have to wake up one day and do some other stuff. I just don't think you can keep being lazy and the average pay is 70 grand. And I'll bet you most of those jobs are government jobs or jobs to serve the government. Yeah. See, we don't get that kind of peculiar, very particular granular data, and we should. This is the problem with the government, man. These numbers are all bullshit. That's why I just look at Bitcoin as a market cap and go, I don't know if anything else is real. I know Bitcoin has a finite supply. It's worth $1.2 trillion right now. It might go to 700, but it's more likely to go to 7 trillion. And that is an awesome bet for 4 years. I could give a toss what this price does, other than I have an alert set now. I've made my life really simple, Chris. Okay. And tell the audience, if this is really stupid, please embarrass me. But I've basically said, look, I'm going to take the all-time high price in any given year. And if I can buy 23 to 25% off that all-time high price, I'm a buyer. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure when that happens, and it will happen on Bitcoin again and again and again, I'm not going to be buying the bottoms. I'm not going to be buying the tops. And I'm going to continue to add Bitcoin in a really sane, consistent way, not worrying about getting missed out, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Is that crazy? Like it doesn't have to be that complicated?
Not at all. No. And again, especially when we're talking about investing, you want to make it as simple as possible. But again, you also have to have your time frames correct, right? You can't do that and then look at the 15-minute chart. You're going to drive yourself absolutely, insane. The
Well, it's a
time you
little
would
bit
spend
like
looking
being
at
married. It's a little bit like being married and you're looking at porn.
that.
You
Well,
know?
yeah.
Seriously.
So the time you would spend looking at a 15-minute chart, go out there and mow lawns. Go out there and do something. I use the mow the lawn thing because I'm old, right? Because that's what I did at 10, 11, 12 years old. I did that. I delivered newspapers. I was hustling back then to make money, right? So I still kind of talk about the same way today. But the reality of it is, stop spending the time staring at that chart if you're looking for an investment, if you're looking to do something that you plan on it changing your life. What you should be doing is focusing all that time you'd spend worrying about the charts and all that stress, and go out there and just find a way to make more of those dollars to keep and putting it in there. Because the more you can put in and the sooner you can do it, the more that time and compounding, as we continue to talk about, are going to bless you, right? They're going to continue to blow that up. There's a reason why people suggest that you start investing in the stock market in your early 20s, because you have time on your side. Warren Buffett did not become who he did here by investing in the last 30 years of his life. He's been investing since the 50s, 60s back then, right? But the thing is,
and the little thing that nobody addresses ever, because they think old man equal diversity. 52% of this cat's portfolio is in Apple. Okay. So this myth about being diversified, dude, the only people that diversify are the people that are scared. They're literally not convinced as they were on the deal that created all the wealth. And then they get rich and they're like, man, I don't want to take that chance again. That was painful. Because it is painful getting rich. It is very painful getting rich.
It's work. Yeah, it doesn't just happen. You've got to make it happen, right? I mean, and so, when we're looking at, that's the whole thing. And I think that's a great point to bring up, because I think that's what most people miss, whether they're building a business or whether they're investing or whether they're trading or whatever they're doing. And when I say investing, maybe you're investing in baseball cards, maybe you're investing in nice watches, whatever it happens to be, is that they don't recognize the work that it takes to get there, right? Everybody's always willing. I've got friends in the music industry, and their biggest thing is when they finally get big, when they finally get seen, everybody's like, man, overnight success. And I'm sitting there and I talk to these guys, and I'm like, I've watched them for the last 15 years. Play for free,
it's really irritating when they come up to you and they're all slaughtered at 12 o'clock at night at a bar, and they're, I could have done that too. I mean, it fucking didn't take anybody to do that shit. And like, oh really? Well, why didn't you, big boy? I mean, my God.
Yeah, it is. It's it's a crazy thing, but it's work, right? Anything worth doing in life requires a plan, requires goals, and those goals require plans. And the more specific you can be in those plans, actual times, time limits, actual dollar figure, stuff like that, the more likely you are to succeed. And so, it doesn't matter what you're doing. People get into trading because they can, and they think, oh, I'm just going to put my money here. It's going to be so easy. And they end up losing their money.
Yeah. There's a reason. Just because the door is wide open doesn't mean you need to walk through it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, no idea what's on the other side. The devil is on. Hey, the door's open. Let's go check it out, man. And bring my checkbook with me while I'm going. Speaking of that, I got to just tell a funny story, because I think the audience, I'm starting to learn that if the audience isn't entertained, then they're not going to stick around. But so I'm going to tell a funny story on a guy that I cannot remember his name, but I'm talking about mowing yards and taking financial advice. I am sitting with, it must have been 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. I'm at a joint that's got, 1,000 people in it. They rented the whole, building, and people are doing what they do at 11:30 at night, music, and an extremely eclectic group of financial, Bitcoin, crypto people, some the most extreme purists, and then some like me. And maybe even more extreme than I am. Kid walks up to me and says, hey, I'm 22. Well, more like, I'm 22. Me and the Morgan Stanley guy are talking about something quite interesting. And he pops in because he knows who I am. Hey, Gary. Blah, blah. And he proceeds to tell me that he's claimed bankruptcy twice. He's 22, 24 years old. And I looked at him, and me and the Morgan Stanley guy, we've been drinking since like 7 o'clock at night. So him and his wife and me have just been having a blast. Literally just met them in the hotel. All of a sudden, we're great friends of each other. And I'm looking at the kid, and the Morgan Stanley guy that's got 1,000 Bitcoin. He's looking at the kid, and I looked at the kid and said, "Hey, who's your advisor?" And he said, "Well, I am." And I turned him around, and he was right behind a mirror. I turned him around and said, "You see that guy right there? Should never listen to him ever again, son." And he's like, no, I'm going to get it figured out. I said, "Bro, you've gone bankrupt twice listening to yourself. Go pick a yard mower." Like, it's unbelievable. He continued to defend it. He finally got humble enough to go, okay, I got it, sir. I got it. Because some other buddy said, "Hey, dude, you should respect Mr. Cardone here." He's like, and the kid looked at me and said, "Hey, what would you do to change my life right now?" I said, "Dude, I'd quit drinking if I were you." Okay. And he was like, "Huh?" Because he was slaughtered, man. I didn't see Sam slaughtered one time, right? Young guy. He then asked me again. I looked at him and said, "You got to quit drinking, son." And he asked me again the third time. The Morgan Stanley guy's like, "Wow, dude, these kids are so fucked up. It's so sad." And it's not because he was drinking it. Like, this kid probably shouldn't be drinking. But, when you're in a business that is this cool, and you blow your wad by getting high at 8 o'clock or 9:30, 10 o'clock, you can't even hold your bottle, man, to have a reasonable conversation. Now, I'm not a perfect human being. I'm not suggesting anybody be perfect, but I would spend more time being really alert at some of these events. This kind of stuff helps me, though, and I think it helps me to repeat the story, because other people will go, "Oh, shit, I've done that. Don't do." And by the way, I have done that before. I have missed major opportunities because I was, doing something stupid. I don't know why I needed to tell you that story, Chris, but I just thought you'd appreciate it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I agree. I used to, when I was younger, I was a pretty heavy drinker. And because I didn't get hangovers. So I'm one of the fortunate few out there that never had a hangover. So I didn't have a problem going to work the next day, and doing my thing. But the clarity that comes from not drinking heavily, I haven't drank in years now. But just the clarity that comes from that, the ability to focus, the ability to really kind of, I guess it is, it's the old saying, you get what you focus on. And if you focus on partying and drinking all the time, that's where you're going to be. If you focus on building yourself, if you focus on building your business, you focus on building your skill set, whatever it is you're trying to do, that's what you're going to get. And I promise you the latter is going to get you a lot further than the former.
Yeah.
As somebody who's been a part of that. So, yeah.
I mean, look, we even got compliments. Women over here going, "Sam's adorable." Sam's pretending not to see that, but
he's grinning. He's grinning.
I know. I'm like, oh, gee. And then, of course, Gary's got to highlight it.
Of course, I have to highlight it. I mean, look, somebody said they'd mow my grass for me, and you started laughing your ass off.
I thought that was so funny.
Should we roll through some of the comments? I actually like the comments. I think they're funner than what you and I can talk about. Chris.
Yeah.
Let's see. They are always complimentary to you, Chris. You got them in the front end of it. Let's see. What's this? Story time. It's time. Bad Fox like, yeah, Gary's telling one of his dumb stories. Let's see what we got. Chris, Sam, I have to do this. You can't work through these.
Oh, yeah. No, I can see them, but I can't highlight them. So you have
Speaking of work, if you're ever looking for any IT services, we do it all. Well, thank you for the shield, man. Appreciate it. Let's see. This guy's selling Coke, I guess. I used to go to trade shows in the payments industry, and people would come up to me, like serious bank guys, right? And they had this code, and they said, "Hey, you want to go skiing?" I never knew what they were talking about. I'm like,
yep.
Really?
It's August, dude. Like, are you planning a trip? Are you planning a trip in January or February? And where y'all going? They must have thought I was an idiot. And somebody said, "Bro, they're talking about going up the room, snorting coke." I said, "Oh, I'm so stupid." What room are they in? No, just kidding.
See, Gary's going to come up with a new show called Gary's Bedtime Stories. And he's just going to share life stories with you guys.
Chris, dude, I have so many stories. Seriously,
no
dude, I
doubt.
have a lot of freaking stories. And if I don't have them, I will make some up because I have so many things to just pull from and smash it together. Speaking of that, dude, I met Howard Ludnick. You know who Howard is? He's CEO of Cantor.
Yeah, yeah. The guy who everybody,
Bro.
including me, thought he said shitload of Bitcoin. He actually said shed load, and he made sure to mention it there on Twitter.
Dude, he's a beast. Okay. He helped the energy markets just blow up. And I walked up to him. I didn't know any of these people, right? I'm like, wow, what the hell are you doing in here, man? Had no clue Cantor was playing. A buddy of mine from London sent me a note. He said, most bullish thing that happened in that Bitcoin conference was Cantor Fitzgerald being there.
Yep.
I agree, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, for so many reasons. He looked at me and he went, I said, hey, you remember me with Chuck Watson and Steve Bergstrom in the clearinghouse? He looked at me and went, dude, we're going to have so much fun. A repeat cycle. And he was like, hey, come back to New York. Well, he's not in New York, but come over and let's have lunch. And I mean, the amount of IQ coming in this space and the amount of their pocketbooks, the lawyers are everywhere there. Every accounting, reporting, consulting, McKinsey firm on the planet was there. I mean, seriously, I have been a lot of these shows. I've never seen so many spectacular people there, and everybody's right about the same kind of level as understanding relative. The industry's so big, you can't actually be an expert on all of it.
Right.
Anyway, that I went off track on the whole conference. It was quite fun. See what are the comments we have. Let's see. Learning from your failures doesn't mean go play to fail twice. Have you ever done business with someone that said they'd never made a mistake?
I try to stay away from that.
I stay away from
somebody
it.
who's made mistakes.
Dude, you want to know I've gotten wiped out and then could get back up, right?
Yeah, well, it's the reason why the guys from 3 Hours Capital, while they were getting backing and whatever, after they blew the fund up, and everybody's like, who the hell is going to put money with them? Well, because they've shown, listen, we can do a thing, and we failed, and the idea is we learned from that failure.
Yeah, you know the WeWork guy, the guy. I was like, okay, he's done. He went and raised another $200 million, man. I actually took my hat off to him. I don't like him, but I'm like, wow, dude, you got balls, bro.
Yeah.
Let's see. Smash the like button, folks. This is the most important one we've seen. Please smash it, repeat it, send it to your dad, your mom, your sister. Big Chief agrees on a drinking thing. Drunk guys telling you to quit drinking. Okay. If you say so, sir. Let's see. Data for some declaring bankruptcy several times as part of a business model. I've never done it. I would have been embarrassed to do it, but I understand if you form an LLC and you have a problem, that's what it's for. What other things we got? You guys got anything else to discuss? Because I can talk about all these price movements, but quite frankly, I'm just waiting it. Like if you were trying to buy a dip here, Chris, what would you think I could expect in the next, say, this month, coming up August? How dippy could I be if I was going to start setting some bids? Is 60 grand going to get hit? Because I don't think we're going to ever see 50s.
I'm looking right around that 61, 62,000 area as a likely pullback. Now it doesn't mean it can't go down deeper than that. But that right now to me seems like the most likely area if we're to get that pullback. And if we get that, and you're zooming into like the 1 hour, the 4 hour time frame, and you can find compelling reasons in the chart on that time frame to go long, I think that's probably a pretty good area to do so. And I'll be looking to do so because the next move out will be the big push through the all time high, and you see price rallying into 80,000 plus from that. So if we get it, that's about the area where I'm initially looking. Again, that doesn't mean it can't go down lower, but that should hold it, that general area. I don't believe we get a retest of 53,000, anything like that. I think the bottom's in.
I agree with you.
I think we're likely done there. So you needed to have gotten that if you wanted to have gotten it.
I actually think we're starting to punch down to a level where it's getting ready to. Hey, we're not going to see 65 either. It just looks like it's getting worn out at that level.
Yeah. It's interesting. If we get the breakout a little bit higher here, above our recent swing high here at about 70,000, I would be looking for it to target that all-time high right around 73,800, 74,000. And it becomes interesting there. Do we get the big breakout there, or do we get the rejection, the pullback toward that 62,000 area, and then the breakout? That's kind of really, at the end of the day, that's all I'm looking for right now with that.
You need to see a 74 breakout, and not the inflated number, but just 74 is the number. Go break through 74, and we're good to go.
Yeah, I want to see some volume with it. I want to see a nice big candle spread on the daily, like that, to really kind of signal that we're probably headed out. Again, you could catch out, breakout traders right around that area. You could still catch them, pull back, and then do it. My preferred scenario would be this pullback to 62,000. If that means we hit, 73, 74 first and then pull back, or we just continue pulling back from here, for me, that would be the ideal scenario, because at that point, I would feel a lot more confident that when we break out to the all-time high, it's legit, it's done, we're going. Until then, again, we could get from here, we could get a little bit of a breakout, catch some breakout traders, pull them back underwater immediately, push it back down towards 62. Then everybody's convinced that it's a double top locally, over the last 5 months on this range, and we're going down lower. They'll short, you'll catch them, start the fuel back up. They'll get caught, the breakout higher, people jump in, blah, blah, blah. Rinse and repeat, goes up. So that would be the best scenario that I think we could have. But, rarely does it do whatever we think it needs to do or it should do.
Yeah.
I noticed somebody was talking about the M2 money supply, that it's ticking up. Yeah, that goes with what I was saying earlier. When we're looking at that, it's not just about the M2. It's not just about, which, by the way, there are two ways liquidity comes into the system, folks. Dropping the interest rate, cutting the interest rate, and printing money. So either way will increase the liquidity in the system. But you're not just looking at the U.S. You need to look at global liquidity. Okay, so if you want to know something, I've been pushing this quite a bit lately. This is one of my favorite books on it. This is called Capital Wars, The Rise of Global Liquidity, right here. And it's by Michael Howell. The guy is a beast. He is, if you want to understand liquidity, global liquidity, that's the guy to do it. He's got a PhD in economics. He runs I think it's called Cross Border Capital. He's got a Substack that you can subscribe to, where he updates his liquidity model all the time and discusses it. And so if you're really interested in liquidity, guys, I get nothing from telling you about this. This guy doesn't even know I exist. But I see a lot of people talking about liquidity over the last few months, especially. That's the guy that's the guy. That's who you need to go follow and watch and read his stuff. Read that book first, though. It's a great book. It'll really get you in there. But it is about global liquidity. Remember,
that's all that matters. That's all that matters, man.
Yeah, we
got global liquidity. I see. I think the Fed is not really that important anymore. They're one piece of the puzzle, a big piece, but they're not going to play this game all by themselves.
Yeah. It's not just them. I mean, it is a big piece. It is a big piece, but it is not the only thing. And we have China right now that's already injecting liquidity, and the Fed is, we're looking for that to continue on here, for them to really kind of pushing in a bit. So, between those two right there, and then everything else you got going on, I think we've got liquidity, going to continue to kind of pump up coming in. So, yeah.
Yeah. I just saw this quote here by Lucky, the little guy screwed. No way 90% of the population can benefit from price appreciation of Bitcoin, since they won't recognize its value for years. Trump made a comment in the closed door session that we had, and then he repeated it. And I'm not sure really people fully appreciated what he was saying, but he was very emphatic that if we if he doesn't win and this current group of people that are running for office win, he basically said, hey, you guys are fucked. I mean, I think he used that term. You're screwed. And some people thought it was hyperbolic and that, hey, it's going to drive Bitcoin down and everything. I am telling you that I just did a deposition for 7 hours yesterday from my old FTC problem, because had an FTC issue 5 years ago, took 3.5 years to go through this draconian process. Okay. Now I'm being very, very vocal about it, and I'm probably going to get my head ripped off my shoulders. But I looked at my lawyer the day before on Monday, just to show you the fascist country that we're living in. My lawyer charges $1,700 an hour. Swallow on that one. By the way, when he flies to see me, I'm paying $1,700 an hour to get him here. Well, I'm not actually paying him, but I worked out a pretty cool deal. And where was my thought process? So I go into this depot that is about payment processing, credit card, and chargebacks. I've never sold anything to a consumer in my life, but when the FTC files a suit against a little tiny company or a big one, they put it on a webinar. So guess what happens? You take 3 years because the government takes forever. They're trying to just wind you down. $7 million in expenses to defend against what they said. You owe us $100,000. Here, if you write us a check for $100,000, we'll go away. The first question the deposition asked me after my name and address, Mr. Cardone, are you deeply engaged in the Bitcoin industry, in the crypto industry? Like, I could not believe it, dude. And I said, well, what does deeply mean? And what does that have to do with this conversation with you ambulance chasers? I mean, literally, the company can't get rid of these people. They have one consumer they're representing that signed a document. Like, it's such a broken system. I mean, people can just sue you forever and ever and ever. Anyway, this goes on for 7 hours. Okay. Like, literally, there is no case here, but it is allowed to continue on and on and on through the system. This is going on for 2 years now, man. Okay. It's just, and then Trump came up with this idea while we're talking about how draconian our lives will be through overregulation. And he said, we need a new rule about law. If the government comes and sues you and they lose, they pay for it. Let's just change one rule. He who is the aggressor, if he loses, whoever loses pays all the bills. You would cut all your litigation in half tomorrow morning.
Well, my only concern with that is that these are people and they're like, okay, so we work for the government, so the government has to pay, which means it's our money, right? And it doesn't really deter them. That's the problem.
Well, but think about it this way, okay? Wouldn't have cost me $7 million. I'd have gotten all my money back, dude.
Yeah.
And what it would have stopped the government from doing, you would never, ever have one audience if you spent $7 million to chase $100,000.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not material to the U.S. government. Nothing I did, like, I wanted to go to court. They literally made 30 minutes. They were like, hey, why did you say on video 3 months ago? They're picking up video of what I said 3 months ago about a case that happened 6 years ago. And you said, hey, you think the U.S. government, Visa, MasterCard are draconian government entities that are sucking the lifeblood out of entrepreneurs. I said, yeah, I said it and I believe it, man. I mean, half the thing was basically politically driven. Couldn't believe it. The questions. Yeah. But I like that rule, Chris. Hey, I have never sued anyone, man.
Yep.
Like, I have a rule if you and I were doing business, I have a little contract rule that I put in and go, hey, look, if we're going to sue it, you know how it says any lawsuits to be in Houston, Texas? My deal is he who is the aggressor on the lawsuit does the lawsuit in the city of the other person. That slows half the lawsuits down.
Yeah.
right? The aggressor is no longer has an advantage. Hey, I'm in Washington, D.C. You can come see me from Puerto Rico, right? Who wants to do that? So anyway, I'm sorry to get off on the whole thing, but it's just I believe that if this group gets in the office, my Bitcoin's worth nothing. And my life is going to be miserable. I am going to be audited and harassed for decades. I really believe that, man. Which, I mean, I won't promise it, but will probably blow out of here. Because I think it's going to get messy. I know I got us all off track. Hopefully the audience doesn't penalize you guys for me being a little scattered. Anything else we want to talk about today, gentlemen?
No, we got to get ready to wrap up. But Gary, you want to leave off with our famous ending statement?
Chris, do you have anything to end with, buddy?
Just that, again, gold and silver should continue higher as well. Stocks continue higher. NVIDIA, I think, probably heads higher. Dollar DXY heads lower. Bitcoin higher. Ethereum higher overall. I don't see a lot of really big headwinds, as far as these markets go right now.
What about electricity and energy? Because Trump was drill, baby, drill. I'm going to drown you in electricity. Is this
right
good
now.
Or bad?
Well, WTI right now, I was just looking at it this morning, doing the updates for our students. And I've got it heading above $100. So natural gas right now, we had a pretty decent pullback here. But it's, I want to see if we can get some more legs to this little bounce we've got going. But we potentially see some further upside with that as well. So, for right now anyway, energy continues to look good. You can look at XLE, continues to look good. I think we get higher for a while anyway. Doesn't mean it has to continue higher for the next 5 years or whatever, but right now it does look like we'll be higher for a bit.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was extremely bullish for the fossil fuel market.
For sure.
I mean, and I think he'll get every one of their votes, right? So, all right, guys, thank you very much. I think the message that Sam has asked me to leave you with is go do something nice for somebody today and don't tell anybody about it. It's an awesome life hack. There's 2,000 people in this room. Imagine that, dude. 2,000 people being nice to 2,000 other people. Yeah. Send it to a charity. You don't have to do it to people, okay? There's just clean up some dirt. I don't know. Be imaginative and don't communicate to your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend about it. All right, guys, really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys in my life. I feel gifted and blessed by it. So thank you so much. Have an awesome day and buy some Bitcoin.